first of all, I want to thank everybody for being here. I really appreciate this. And I want to thank Devin for...
Got to mention Barry.
And I want to thank Devin for helping us put this together and shortening it quite a bit. I'm Don Drury, and this is my partner, Barry Jarvis. Does he get his own microphone?
No, you guys got to share it.
Hi, Barry Jarvis.
And we are Agruity. What Agruity is essentially the Uber for agriculture. What we do is we connect farmers and chefs for the long-term delivery of product. And I think the best way to really describe what we do is to break that down and tell our story a little bit and sort of nail one particular product in one particular scenario. So my background is farming. I ran an organic farm, a 40-acre organic farm in Yale, Oklahoma for 6 years. And I sold my wares through a variety of outlets, farmers markets, CSAs, and direct to chef. And I think direct to chef was probably the thing that I had the most fun with and was probably the most economically solvent because of the greater average delivery size, the greater average transaction size, because I could drop off $400 of stuff at a restaurant and only have to stop for 30 minutes. But here's where the problem comes. If I'm a farmer and I'm looking out in the field, let's say it's November, because that's when we usually decide what we're going to plant for the year, I've got to figure out how much and what to plant. And the general rule is you don't want to plant anything that you don't have a reasonable good expectation of being able to sell. How do you do that? How do you pre-sell a product before you even plant it? Well, right now you can't. There's no way to do that. I mean, you can do it informally, right? You can get on the phone with all your friends, your chefs, whatever, and you can get oral agreements, right? Or Whole Foods. I used to sell to Whole Foods. Say I want to sell them sweet potatoes. Their produce buyer is going to tell me, oh, sure, we can spend $30 a case and we'll buy 40 cases a week for our 41st and Peoria store. I plant the sweet potatoes. 120 days later, I start harvesting the sweet potatoes, and what happens? I call up the store and I say, you agreed to $30 a case, 40 cases a week. And they say, oh, actually, we don't need that much right now. And actually, we can only pay 80% of that. But yet here I am looking out in the field and I'm trying to figure out, what do I do with all these sweet potatoes? So that's where the idea came about of how do we really nail down that sales relationship between a chef and a farmer in a way that's enforceable and predictable for both parties. It's called a forward contract. It's just an agreement for the future delivery of a product at a known price, and this is already being done at the highest level of the food chain, right? Up at the very top of the distribution system, with really large contracts that are administered by the buyers. So I thought, well, let's just do this in a small, let's bring this down to a micro level, where it's accessible to the smallest farmer and the smallest chef. Then I realized this is just a database. Instead of putting myself in the middle of that relationship and finding the buyers and finding the sellers, why don't we just build a website? Put this into a database so that the two parties can locate each other and then help them negotiate the sales agreements. So from the farmer's perspective, if you're selling wholesale direct to a chef, you have a long list of things that you have to do. There's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of time involved with actually finally coming down to a transaction. If you look at that list, that's just for one sale, right? What if you only had to do that once and you automatically generated like 12 POs and 12 invoices and 12 packing slips? Wouldn't that be easier for both the chef and the farmer? And I'll let Barry tell you what the chef's perspective is on that, because they have a very similar but related problem.
So my background, I grew up on a farm. I saw what industrial agriculture did to a polycultural farm, what a monoculture would do to the soil and water. So I became an environmental scientist, and then I transitioned into food media. And so I published Edible Tulsa magazine, and I went to culinary school. And to be a chef, especially in Oklahoma, anywhere in the heartland, is really, really hard to do it the right way. You would almost need a full-time forager, a full-time preservation director to do it like they do in New York, San Francisco, Santa Fe. So that wasn't feasible for me, so I went into food media to kind of further the message. So it's really, really hard and time-consuming for chefs to source locally. And most of them give up really quick. In the culinary field, you're not trained on sourcing unless you're in one of the very, very top, CIAs, the Harvards of culinary school. So this is a way that we can educate and build this into the curriculum for students to go out there, and we'll be able to easily say, hey, chef, we can source locally easily and in very little time and energy.
Okay, so how does it work? What do? We do 4 things. First of all, we introduce the buyer and seller, right? If we have the database and we know where they are on the map, we can tell them about each other. And the way that we've set up the user experience of the website, it becomes a qualified lead because you know that the other person is interested in your product. Also, we help them negotiate the actual sales agreement. We provide the template, we fill in the blanks after they go through our 3-step negotiation process. Third, and I think the biggest value proposition to this is not just introducing them, not just helping them build the contract, but actually executing the sales. They don't have to worry about accounts receivable. They don't have to worry about accounts payable. They don't have to build invoices. They don't have to build packing slips. All they got to do is bring the product as agreed to the chef. And the chef doesn't even have to do anything. As long as everything works properly and nobody interrupts the process, the payment happens by default. Finally, and this is where Barry comes in most importantly, is give the buyer marketing credit for that transaction. Because they know their customers want to see them buying locally and sustainably produced product, but right now there's no way for the customer of that particular restaurant or grocery store to find out, is that person actually buying locally grown stuff? If we've got the tables, we can index that. We can tell the public and pat them on the back for doing something good for their community. How do we make our money? First of all, we decided this is not going to be a subscription-based program. It's a 2-sided marketplace. You've got to get both parties to sign up, so there can't be a barrier to entry. Also, I like farmers, and I don't want to charge farmers for this. Also, if you charge one party, they have an incentive to go around you, right, and not go through your contract system. So one party has to pay, and we pick that party to be the buyer. 2.9% actually covers all our costs and then some, so that we have the budget to be able to market them to the world.
And from the buyer's perspective, they get all this service, so it's worthwhile. But in the food world, we know the best chefs get their hands on the best ingredients. So for them, this is going to feel kind of like a video game. All these connections they make with the best producers in whatever region they are going to be traceable. Not the dollar amounts, but the volume and the number of agreements they've made. So that marketing power, from my perspective, is worth more than any Yelp review or write up in a magazine that everything tastes great. And that's just on the chef side. That'll be the marketing side, but the big driver of this is going to be schools, institutions, farm-to-school program, the USDA school lunch program. Those programs are floundering. Tons and tons of money is not being spent on getting local food for children in the schools. And so this is going to, the farm-to-school director of Oklahoma said, this is an answer to a prayer. And so there's lots of problems there that this could help solve and be traceable for taxpayers.
So how big is this market? If we talk about agricultural products in the United States of America, it's a $450 billion market. And right now, only 1.1% of that is actually being sold directly from the farmer to the chef, 1.1%. There's 1.3 million decision makers out there if you talk about institutional kitchens, restaurants, or grocery stores. If you run the numbers, all we've got to do is convince 300,000 of them to purchase 20% of their budget through our service from a local producer. And that's 5% market penetration right there. That's a big deal. That's a 500% increase of what we're already doing. That's going to really help the situation. So where are we at now? We've launched. We launched a couple weeks ago. We've got a handful of users, like 40 users, and about 15 of them are active right now. And we're kind of having to push them because it's a chicken and egg problem, two-sided marketplace. And we've already seen offers. We've already seen negotiated contracts and closed sales, and we have seen revenue. We're just pushing recruitment right now. So what do we need from you? We need you to talk to anybody who's in the food business. If you have a friend that's a chef, if you have a friend that is the produce manager of a grocery store, if you have a friend that's a farmer, put them in touch with us because we really want to get them signed up to this service. We can help them do their business better.
Any questions? Questions coming around? Just,
Okay, just a comment. I love it that you had a problem and it solved it. Your presentation's great. You're attacking the right bullet points, but I like it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
How are you tracking, I'll call it the performance side for both the buyer and the seller? So they're up on your site. The seller says we have 1 pound bags of microgreens. Is there anything on the other side of it saying they were able to deliver? They received the order and they performed?
Yes. On each profile of buyer or seller, you'll see executed agreements, and they can rate each other in carats. So, 4 carats is strong commitment. Yeah, so
I think it should be apples.
or apples, yeah. But so the most consistent, reliable producers and buyers will form the longest term agreements.
So after you introduce this buyer to the chef, how do you continue to keep them using this service and not just going direct to each other and cutting you out, which leaves you with a one-time or couple times sale and then they move on?
That's a good question. The way we're going to do that is by promoting these agreements. So on social media, through the Edible Tulsa, local food magazines and websites, we want the value of that proven transaction to be worth much more to them. Like we want it to feel like a video game. Silver, gold, platinum. Once you're at platinum, we might send a writer in and a photographer to give you a 1,000-word professional write-up to put on your profile. So that comes in phase 2 when we start to use these transactions to promote what they're doing. Tulsa Public Schools has all kinds of fun things going on. They want the exposure. They want their parents to feel good about what's going on. So when they make purchases, we will be able to promote that. And if they go behind, if they cut it out to save 2.9%, it's not traceable and there's no marketing power behind it. So, and plus then they have to deal with paperwork, packing slips. The farmer has to wait around. Is somebody here that can write me a check, or can I just click a button and get paid? So we want both sides to feel like they would not want to do that.
So Barry talks a lot about the buyer side, and I think about the producer side. The short answer, they won't go around us because we're providing sufficient value to that relationship. And one other reason, and when I say value, I mean not just the marketing, but also just the reduction of paperwork and making the transactions easier. But there's another component to this. That's one of the main reasons why we decided that one party has to participate in this totally free. We're providing value to the farmer, the producer, rancher, dairyman, or whoever. So why would, if you're the farmer and I come to you and I say, hey, let's go around Agruity, let's just copy and paste that contract and go direct to you. You're like, well, why would I do that? Why would I deal with accounts receivable when I don't have to, when I'm dealing with Agruity? And furthermore, we provide them with a level of insurance because the way these forward contracts are set up, there's a penalty on the buyer if they refuse the product. If they suddenly change their mind at the last minute, we're going to take 15% of that total value of that product, debit their account, and then credit the producer's account. So there's a consolation prize for the producer, even if the contract falls through, and the buyers know this up front. So no, I don't think they will go around this.
I have two questions. The first one is just to touch on that topic. So there's a penalty if the buyer falls through. Obviously, we're in a season where the weather is very unpredictable. What if the the producer falls through? That's my first question.
That's a good question. And so the large scale distributors are actually friends of this. And when we talk to chefs, a lot of them don't even know the seasons. So it's an education process. They can have anything from anywhere in the world in 24 hours. And almost any ingredient they can have same day from all the trucks you see running all over town. So they already have these relationships. So it'll just take a little bit of education to say, and our farmers will notify them, hey, I'm gonna be 20% short on this. And so, but that relationship so there's a safety net that's built in, and most of the chefs I know, are completely cool with that.
So that's my first question. The second question is on the marketing strategy. 2.9, that's great. You're covering your margins, plus you guys have some profit. If you tap into that market, 2.9% of $1 billion is great. Are you also considering other avenues of marketing as far as advertising and things like that?
Yeah.
I hate to bring it up, but is there going to be a banner for farmersonly.com out there or something like that?
Yeah, maybe a little, audio jingle or something. Probably.
Space for advertising. I mean, that's not our primary.
We think that we think native advertising is the way of the future. So not ads, but hey, we're going to send a video crew in for you. And we don't know if that'll be paid later or just a reward for large volumes and large, connections. But yeah, I think there's definitely alternate revenue streams when you get into the native advertising idea. Okay, yeah, so the Edible Tulsa magazine that I publish is a member of 90 community magazines all over North America. So when we scale up, when it's working, when we're ready to move, I can connect with 90 of the most connected people in local food scenes in 90 cities with one email. And many of them I've met face to face and am very close with. So that network is something that would be very hard to duplicate for a large internet company. Oh, we need to find out who the most connected person in the local food scene is in each city. That's huge. I mean, that's very, very hard to do. That would take a team of researchers to do, and we have that already. So, so we want to use that as a resource to build up. And many of the best users in each cities will already have, articles and photography and things to really help push it out.
So inherently, this is a matchmaking type of thing between farmers and the buyers. So the core problem for starting one of these is momentum. Nobody wants to be the first and only soul in matchmaking service. So what is your plan to go to market, build some type of momentum so that when the buyers get there, there's sellers, or when the sellers look at the website, there's somebody there to buy their produce?
Yeah, that's where we're at right now. I mean, you can see, like, that's a real picture of the website right now as of a couple of days ago. So there is some activity right now. I think mostly, we're still in the testing phase, and when I say that we launched, it's by invitation only. So if you go to agruity.com and you create an account, you'll kind of hit a dead end where it says you have to wait for admin permission to get in. Because we're really trying to build up our local market before we try to scale it up. And we're fairly confident that we can get about 200 real active commercial users on there before we even start to go out from there.
So it seems like a simple idea, but what you created or wanted to create is an online trading market.
Yes.
And so the question then arises, what happens about the middleman? Let's say there's pricing arbitrage between here and Oklahoma City. What if I want to go in and corner the market on microgreens in Tulsa? What type of things have you put in place to prevent those type of things, to where you artificially raise the price of microgreens in Tulsa? Is this something that you've thought about when you hit those situations where you have the regional issues with the pricing arbitrage and cornering the market, anything like that?
I'm lost, Jeffrey. Can you break that down and say it without using arbitrage? Sorry.
So microgreens in Tulsa is selling for $35 for a 1 pound bag. In Oklahoma City, there's a shortage, and so it's selling for $100 a bag. With a middleman, they could go in there and buy up all the microgreens in Tulsa and then put them for sale in Oklahoma City and deal with the transportation costs. But that also means the middleman, are you going to, I guess essentially, are you going to allow middlemen in there that would potentially change the pricing situation? And
No.
is this something to where, I mean, I see you have microgreens on there, but this is something to where you're potentially going to bring a commoditization to these items that are right now not commoditized because it's a one-to-one interaction between the farmer and the chef?
That was a lot
So
of
I
questions.
asked, yeah, that's one question.
Okay, as far as the commodification, no, I don't believe that we're commodifying stuff. Yes, all of their products have to fit into our 720 categories. Yeah, that's true. But it's not a commodity as long as the identity is traced through the value chain. You're not buying tomatoes, you're buying tomatoes from John's farm. You're not buying tomatoes, you're buying tomatoes from Peachcrest Farm or Bootstrap Farm or whoever. That's traced all along the way. So no, I don't think so on the commodification. And with the
What about your competitors like U.S. Food Service and Cisco? Those are commoditized items. You're buying
yes,
tomatoes.
they're not identity preserved. Yeah, if you're dealing with a merchandiser, it's not generally identity preserved as it goes through the value chain. And as far as the arbitrage question goes, no. We've set up a rule in the system, in the logic of the system, so that you can't buy and sell from the same product category during the same week. So no, you can't be reselling within the market. Now that's not to say that you can't, if you're a farmer, a lot of farmers have farm stands. I talked to one yesterday out in South Tulsa. And he's like, hey, not only can I sell my products on here, but perhaps I could buy from other farmers to help stock my farm stand because I only want to grow 3 crops and I want to sell 12 crops in my farm stand. Well, yeah, of course, but you can't buy and sell the same crop at the same time. So it cuts out the possibility of that kind of reselling for a profit.
But what if you're a producer and you're hedging your bet, so you're worried about your crop? Yeah, then you can go ahead and put a full contract on somebody else's crop. So you would essentially be selling the same product but buying it. So
Is there a problem with that?
That would break your rule of buying and selling the same time frame, the same product.
Well, no, they can't buy and sell during the same time frame on our marketplace. If they buy from another producer and sell it at their farm stand, or sell it independently off the system in a third-ring sale to another company, that's fine with me. We're in the business of creating opportunities for farmers to make more money. However they get that product sold, whether they sell it directly to a consumer or whether they sell it to another business, I don't really care. It made an opportunity for the farmer that was down the line to grow that product. Does that answer your question?
All of them.
Okay.
One last question, we're running out of time, Dick.
You may have already answered this, but if you did, I missed it. Talk to me about the logistics that you're going to be dealing with. You've got farmers, let's say, in Bixby, Oklahoma, and a chef in Oklahoma City. You've got a 150-mile trip to make to deliver product. if that chef is in Lawton, Oklahoma, it's a 250-mile trip.
Yeah.
How are you going to deal with the logistics of moving all these products to all various locations?
Well, first of all, delivery is only the responsibility of the seller. We're not in the business of physically handling products. I don't want to run trucks. I don't want truckers. I just want to connect the two parties. And the way the negotiation system is set up, the producer is not going to click that they accept a contract until they know who they're talking to. So they know the distance. We calculate the distance that they're going to have to travel in order to deliver that product before they make their final decision on the contract. So we basically leave that up to the two parties. They deal with the logistics, essentially.
Many of our best growers and producers are already on scheduled deliveries on Wednesdays or Saturdays when they come to the market. You can buy things on there and say, I'll pick it up at your market. But, you know, as far as Lawton and the other places, really this is going to provide data for local food systems to develop around where there's a need. If there's a chef that really wants arugula, simple to grow and way, way, way better than anything that comes from California. So there's going to create opportunities. There's probably going to even create opportunities for people that are studying horticulture now to have an idea of buyers in certain areas before they even graduate.
Okay, so besides introducing you to growers and chefs, the 1 Million Cups community has our last question, which is, what can the 1 Million Cups community do for you?
Besides help
Besides,
us recruit new users, I think I'm a farmer, right? And I got pigeonholed into sort of doing the project management for a bunch of developers, and I'm not exactly qualified for that. So if anybody wants to introduce me to somebody who could take over the project management role of dealing with actual website development, that would be great.
All right, thank you. Thank you
Thank
guys
you.
very much.
What an awesome opportunity. $450 billion